Hey Slingers, welcome to another week of the Wordslinger podcast. I'm glad you could drop by. Now, I'm going to be talking to Mark O'Neill. You're going to want to hear this conversation, particularly if you think women deserve a much bigger role in fiction, especially in thrillers. So stick around. This episode of the Wordslinger podcast is brought to you by Draft to Digital. Convert your manuscript, distribute it online, and get support the whole way at drafttodigital.com.
It's the Wordslinger podcast, where story matters. Build your brand, write your book, redefine who you are. It's all about the story here. What's yours? Now, here's the guy who invented Pants Optional, Kevin Tomlinson, the Wordslinger.
Wordslinger.
I am Kevin Tomlinson, the Wordslinger, and I am pants-free, pants-optional, whatever. You get it. So thanks for coming by for another week of the Wordslinger podcast. I'm so glad that we have this platform, because sometimes I come across things that I'm just I get furious about something, and I just have to share it with somebody. And you guys, you're my default. You're who I share these things with. I've got some news items. One news item in particular that you're going to want to stick around for all the way through the interview. Trust me, you're going to want to stick around for this. And I've got basically two related news items. But one in particular has my blood boiling. So you're going to want to stick around for that. In other news, other Wordslinger related news, let's do an RV update. We haven't done one of those in a week. So I got the RV back from a renter, and there was some damage. There were some things that needed to be repaired, but things were not as bad as I was initially led to believe. So I spent the weekend. I was power washing. I bought a power washer at the flea market. You know me. I love the flea market. I bought a power washer. Works great. Hosed down the RV, cleaned everything up, got everything ready. Was going to fix the broken step, but found out there's two things. There are two recalls. I think I may have mentioned this already, but there are two recalls. There's a recall for the windshield wipers, which have been a chronic problem with the RV since I bought it. They're garbage, but I finally got Thor to get back to me, and they let me know that there's a recall on that. And there's also a recall on the step, which had broken from the last rental. So now I've got a recall on both the major issues. But I had a renter picking it up who's going to have it for a month, and that's quite a bit of change. I mean, that's quite a bit of cash coming my way for this thing. So, I mean, let's just put it this way. I can pay for all the overhead for this RV for the rest of 2018 with this one rental. So, very important. Very important that we get this. Thankfully, he was understanding about the windshield wipers and about the step. I did provide an alternative to the step. I have this little folding aluminum step that he can use. Not uncommon, actually, in the RV world for this kind of thing. So people kind of expect it. The windshield wipers, more of a problem, but I've been told it's drivable. I mean, I've been told there's no problem as long as he pulls over during the rain. I let him know this. I gave him some options, and I gave him a break on some things. Accommodated him on some things that I'm not going to charge him for some stuff that I normally would have charged for. So that's good. So the RV thing is kind of working out. Now I'm really going to look into buying more RVs, I think. It's becoming kind of a little side business. However, I do have a problem to solve. Maybe you can help. I got to figure out a way to be able to hand off the RV, manage things, even manage maintenance without my presence. Because I'm about to start traveling for the conferences that are coming up and other things. My wife has been traveling for her work. And it's just, it's getting too difficult to be able to make sure I'm here to do walkthroughs, to do handoffs, to check and clean the thing after it's done. I mean, I'm doing all the jobs because doing all the jobs is how you you learn. Being hands-on is how you learn. So I'm happy to have done this, but now I've got to figure out a new strategy, or this little side business I've started isn't going to work out. So I've got to figure that out. So I'm open to suggestions. I got a few ideas, but if you've got something in mind, I mean, I'm thinking of hiring someone to do this. I'd like to contract someone to do it rather than employ them to do it. But we'll see what happens. At any rate, that's the RV update. Other stuff going on. My newest book is still being written. I fell off the wagon. I was slacked off. Mostly because I just had so many things happen all at once. It's taken me a while to get back on track. I lost momentum in this book. I still believe in the story. I'm still excited about the story. I lost a little bit of momentum. I'm getting back to it. But one thing I've done lately is I decided, I need to refine some of my processes. One thing I did was I started using Grammarly more. I had kind of used it. The reason I didn't default to Grammarly was mostly because I had to do it a section at a time. I couldn't do an entire Word document, book-length Word document in this thing. I had to do it in sections. But what I thought was a weakness, I now think may be a strength. Because I do this in chunks. I do chapters, right? Or actually, I do scenes because I may have multiple scenes within a chapter split out. I write in Scrivener. So what I do is export. Here's the secret sauce, okay? I export each chapter with its scenes as Word documents, individual Word documents for each scene. And then I carry those into Grammarly, and I got the pro version of Grammarly, the paid version. I import those as Word documents into Grammarly. You can cut and paste, but if you import the Word document, it will hold on to your formatting. So if you have italics and things like that, it'll hold on to all that stuff. It'll export that. I use their automated service to help me spot things. And then once I've corrected everything that I'm going to correct, because sometimes it makes suggestions that make no sense. Sometimes it makes suggestions that are just flat out wrong. So anyway, I found myself in arguments with Grammarly. I'm like, no, I'm not using that word. That word is completely wrong. So rather than argue with the limited artificial intelligence of this software, I've decided, I'll say delete that or whatever. I'm not going to do that. I'll accept that. I'll fix that. And then once it's done, I go back and read that section for my own edits, and I'll do some correcting in Grammarly. So I'll do the editing and a bit of rewrite in Grammarly. And that has the advantage, actually, of correcting as I go. If I make a mistake, it spots it right away. In that sense, Grammarly might actually be a pretty good writing platform, but we'll experiment with that later. I like Scrivener because it's an always-on available writing software for me, and I've invested in it, and I have brand loyalty. I'm a very brand loyal person. So once I've got the whole thing edited and rewritten, as it were, I spit that out. I name my files. I have a little code I use basically for each book. So, and I can go into that some other time. But I code these things so that I can do it by chapter and scene, and then I know what's been edited and what hasn't. And then I'll spit that out as a Word document, and then I'll go into that document, accept all changes, delete all comments, and then import it into Scrivener. There may be a way to do that in Scrivener, but I can't be bothered to figure it out right now. If you know, you can let me know. Hit me in the comments or something, or go over to the show notes at wordslingerpodcast.com and leave me a comment. You can do this on YouTube as well. But it doesn't matter because it is another step for me, but it's not horrendous. It takes a few seconds. I do that. I save it. I drop that Word document into Scrivener where it belongs. I delete the original because I've got 2 copies, actually. I've got the original version saved as a Word document that I spit out from Scrivener, and I've got the updated version spit out from Grammarly. And so I just replace it in the Scrivener document. I could archive those, save those in a folder, but what difference does it make, really? Okay, so there you go. And then as I go along, I'm editing and rewriting the book, and it has been much cleaner. I will admit. Now, once I'm done, I'll spit this whole thing. I keep saying the word spit, and I'm sorry about that. I will export. I will compose. I will. What is the Scrivener has its word for it, and I never remember. Compile. I will compile the manuscript from Scrivener, and then I'll send it to my street team, who will read it and send me corrections. So my goal is to use these tools to create a document that is completely free of errors. Of course, right? Everyone wants to do that. But I think I'm much further along in this than I would have been years ago, than I was years ago. So the editing is getting a lot easier, a lot better. Anyway, that's a quick tip. If you're not using Grammarly, check it out. There is a free version. You can basically do everything I'm doing in the free version, but you get some advanced options, and it's up to you whether or not you think they're worthwhile. I'm actually using the plagiarism option, the plagiarism feature, for something completely different than what it was intended for. I'm using it for idea generation because I know I'm not plagiarizing any of this work. And when I run the plagiarism tool, it spots all kinds of things, but it's always something completely unrelated. In no way am I plagiarizing someone else's work with this, but what it does is lead me to a bunch of new ideas that may come into books later. I won't plagiarize those either, but it's a good idea generator. It typically is related to my work because of the phraseology I use, right? So you can generate more ideas using the plagiarism tool. I'm going to do some content around this at some point, so stick around for that. Oh, by the way, if you are watching on YouTube, let me see if I can get into this shot here, visible here. It's hard, but see, I'm wearing my "Have I Mentioned I'm a Novelist" t-shirt. Sorry about that. I bumped the table and everything vibrated. But this is one of the shirts I offer on my Written World t-shirts, which you can find on wordslingerpodcast.com. I need to be more explicit about those things, but I have a whole bunch of fun t-shirts I've created, so you might want to check those out. Anyway, we're about 12 minutes in, so we're going to go ahead and get into this interview with Mark O'Neill. He's a thriller writer. You're going to kind of dig this. He's a Scotsman living in Germany, which is intriguing all on its own. He writes thrillers that are set in Germany, which is an interesting market. One of the things that we talked about, though, and one of the things I was interested in, is that he's pushing the idea of female protagonists, strong female protagonists. So this is, and he's a male writer, of course, so it's going to be a little bit of from his point of view, but he liked the idea of breaking stereotypes and making a strong female thriller protagonist, and I like the idea too. So let's jump in to this interview with Mark O'Neill, and stick around on the other side of it. You're definitely going to want to hear today's industry news, so make sure you tune in for that. I'll see you on the other side. Hey everybody, thank you for tuning in. This is going to be an interesting episode. Today's guest actually approached me on Twitter with a suggestion for a topic, and you know me, I'm a pretty amicable guy. I'll take suggestions. This was a really good one though, and I'm actually excited about this topic. I'm talking to author Mark O'Neill. He's the author of The Renegade Spy. He's a thriller writer just like me. Former technology journalist. That's pretty cool, Mark, man. But welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Now, I want to start right off because you have what we Americans call an accent. And I'd love for you to identify where you are in the world right now.
I'm originally from Edinburgh in Scotland, but I am now in Germany, in Würzburg. I'm married to a German. I have a German dog. I pay German taxes, and I've been here now for 17 years.
Okay, that's really interesting. Yeah, Germany is not a place I would have thought you'd end up. Honestly,
Yeah,
how'd that come
I
about?
think my mother says that every day as well.
Yeah,
She always asks me when I'm coming back.
I have actually quite a few friends who live and work in Germany, so I
Oh,
hear
good.
good things. Yeah. So you're all right. So you're a former technology journalist.
Hmm.
How do you transition from that to writing thrillers?
Um, I was, well, I've been writing that kind of stuff since 2004. And last year, it just got to the point where I was just getting really burnt out talking about the latest internet tool and the latest thing that Facebook was up to. And I thought to myself, God, no, I can't write about any of this stuff anymore.
Yeah.
And I decided I was going to try and write fiction. I've always wanted to write fiction, but I just never had a story idea. And then last year, suddenly a story idea popped into my head, and I thought, let's run with it. So it took me about a few months to finish the book. And I don't know if you know Mark Dawson. Do you know
I
Mark
do.
Dawson?
I
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was in his groups as well. So I got some encouragement from him and his members and his groups. And I just decided to take a chance and put my first book on Kindle and drafted it.
I drafted digital. Oh, okay. That is a free plug. I
A
didn't.
free
I
plug.
didn't. I didn't arrange that plug in advance. So, so you okay? That is a common origin story, I think, for a lot of authors. That's interesting. So, how are you doing? Are you full time at this now?
I wish. No. I'm still doing the technology articles to pay the bills. But when I'm not doing that, I'm writing the books, and I'm really hoping to try and get the income up so that I can do the books full time. But
Yeah.
things like marketing, promotion, advertising, these things are not really my kind of area.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, you'll know yourself as an independent writer, if you don't have those kind of skills, it's very difficult to get your books out there. So
Yeah.
that's something that I'm going to have to try and learn a bit better to try and get my
Well,
revenue.
that's the burden of every author, right? The marketing is really the challenge for most of us.
Yeah, everybody
Although
thinks
I'm
that writing the book is the hardest part, but
right.
that's actually the easiest part.
Yeah,
It's
yeah. Especially if
people
you
to
have a
know about
writing
it afterwards.
right. Yeah, and if you have a writing background like you do,
Mm,
the writing part, the discipline of the writing, I think
mm.
comes a little easier. And it's interesting, by the way, that you're keen on rounding off the sort of journalism career and going into writing books full time. I mean, I know people who would kill just for the journalism career. So it's it's always interesting to talk to authors because we all have our own special take on how we want things to work out.
Yeah, but there's a lot of journalists these days that are jumping into fiction. I mean, I was
Right.
just reading the other day about the CNN journalist Jake Tapper, and he's now jumping into fiction writing. And you think that he is doing pretty well with his CNN career, but now he's a fiction author. So it
Yeah.
seems to be the fashion these days for everybody to write a book.
Yeah. Well, when nonfiction is so utterly depressing, you turn to something a little more hopeful, right?
You try to write your own reality.
Yeah. 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 How much of your journalism career though feeds into your fiction?
Well, as I said, a lot of what I've been writing about in the last 15 odd years has been um, internet related, software related.
Hmm.
So when it comes to writing thriller books, then there isn't really much of a crossover. I mean, I might in some of the books have a spy use Signal, the encrypted app, or I might have them do something on a website or something.
Right.
So I might mention that, but I wouldn't say there's much crossover between what I was doing and what I'm doing now.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's part of the attraction, because now I'm doing something different, totally different, and now I don't feel like I'm getting up every day and doing the same old boring thing.
Right. Yeah. You shift mental gears.
Mm.
So you're not doing the Stieg Larsson thing then, where you're you're dumping, an entire website's worth of technical
Oh God,
spiel
no.
into which
Yeah.
I love all the millennial. It was the Millennium. Yeah,
Millennium.
I love all of them. But yeah, that's the one I don't have. I don't personally have that as a criticism. I actually get criticized for having too much of that sort of thing in my own work. I reference technology too much in my own work. So
Oh, so you're a thriller writer yourself?
I am, yes, yeah. And I also have a technology background as well. I have an engineering
Oh,
background, so there's a tendency to want to throw a lot of that stuff in there.
we're kindred spirits.
There you go. As happens so often on this show, I stumble across yet another kindred spirit, which is great. Now you've been writing books that include female protagonists.
Yes.
Okay, and that's really kind of the topic that we wanted to drag into the spotlight here, because it's not altogether rare. You there are female protagonists in thrillers. Typically, those are written by women, but so it's a little more rare, I guess, that you have a female protagonist written by a male author. But how do you handle writing a female protagonist?
Well, I'm a big fan of James Bond and Jason Bourne, but one of the things that really bothers me about James Bond, for example, is that women are looked upon as, how can I put this, accessories for
Yeah,
James Bond, to hang on his arm and to tell him how handsome he is and go to bed with him and so on. And I mean, I know a lot of women who are bothered by that kind of sexism and that kind of, that's all we're good for, basically.
hmm
And when I was going to write my book, the protagonist was originally going to be a man.
right.
And then I thought to myself, well, who needs another male spy? We've
Right.
got so many male spies already out
That
there.
story's been told. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. So I thought to myself, why don't I make it a woman? Because then that makes it unique. And it's set in Germany, which again makes it unique,
hmm
because who needs another CIA saves the world or MI6
Right,
saves the world? Let's
right,
have another country step in and do the hard work. You
right,
guys have a day off and somebody else can do the hard work.
right. Yeah, yeah.
So I decided to make it a female, and I decided to make her a bit of a bitch, excuse my language. and
Family show, Mark.
oh, okay, sorry,
I'm
sorry.
just kidding. I'm kidding.
A spirited woman.
Okay.
And so she's a bit of a renegade, a bit of an outcast, and I thought she'd be quite fun to write. See what she could get up to, because obviously the intelligence community is a man's world, isn't it? I
Yeah.
mean, there's so many much machoism in these places. So I thought it would be good to put like an outspoken feminist in the middle of all that, and then let her handle all the men. And
Yeah.
I've actually had women email me and say that they really enjoyed it. They really enjoyed seeing the gender flip.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see that. I mean, we're in a very, and I've talked to other guests about this actually, but we're in a very girl power era, or I should say woman power, I guess, I mean, we're in a very strong feminism era where we're actually finally getting to see women, who, as you say, they're no longer accessories to the hero. They are the hero.
Mm.
And it's not that we've never seen that before. It's just that now we have an opportunity to explore this in a very different way, in different levels. I'm kind of glad to see that happening. So another interesting aspect of what you're talking about, though, is the fact that you're writing this as these are German characters. Are you're still writing in English, though? Is that right?
Yes, I am. I'm actually looking for a German translator, but I
Okay.
mean, at the moment, I'm writing them in English, and I've actually got a Spanish translation on the way. I found somebody to do them in Spanish, so the first one should be coming out in Spanish pretty soon. But
Okay.
yes, even though they are set in Germany, they are written in English.
Okay. So there now, I had heard, maybe you can correct me on this, or maybe you can help me figure out how this really works. But I had heard that in Germany, one of the things you have to be careful of is the intellectual property. Uh, if you have someone translate the work, it could become, at least in part, their intellectual property. Is that the way that works in Germany?
Uh, To be perfectly honest, I haven't looked into all of that yet because I haven't
Okay.
found a translator yet.
Okay.
But I do know somebody who is a lawyer, so you can be sure that I will be looking into all that.
That sounds like a good plan. Yeah,
Maybe
because that's one of the
I can
reasons.
come back on your show and talk about that later.
There you go. That actually would not be a bad topic. I've actually had guests on the show. I had a guest on the show who does translations. She owns a company called Azugama, and they do localization and translation, meaning it's
Mm,
that uses local idioms and things like that. But
yeah.
that was one of the things she mentioned. So I've always been wary of that. Like I'm careful about translations now because of that. So
Yeah.
it's interesting.
Well, I mean, Joanna Penn would be a good person to ask because she's got all her books in German.
Yeah, I can ask
Uh,
Joanna.
and Mark Dawson also has all his books in German. So he would be another good person to ask about that because I know for a
Excellent.
fact they've talked about contracts before in other countries. So
Right, right, right. So you're now it's interesting. Is what's the German equivalent of say the CIA or MI6 or whatever? What would that be?
Uh, right. Well, the Foreign Intelligence Service, which is what operates outside of Germany, is the BND, which means the Bundesnachrichtendienst,
Okay.
which basically means the national Nachrichten is more sort of, I suppose, yeah, I suppose National Intelligence Service would probably be
Yeah.
the nearest translation. And then for internal security, it's the BFV, the Bundesfassung. Oh God Almighty, I'm forgetting all my German here. Basically, it's a German for the protection of the German Constitution. That's what it's called.
Okay.
But I mean, it's basically the same thing as the FBI and the CIA, or
Okay.
MI5 and MI6. It's just different names, same place.
Yeah. 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 And that's cool. That's the kind of thing like American readers are going to be innately familiar with FBI, CIA, and some who are maybe exposed to a little more world culture will probably know what MI5 and MI6 are. They've heard of Scotland Yard. They've heard of things like that. So it's to me, it's interesting that you're able to bring in something from a completely different culture. That's It's interesting that you've chosen to bring two different perspectives from two different aspects of thrillers into these books.
Yeah, and then you've got the federal police as well.
Yeah.
So they could also be described as the FBI. So, there's no sort of one size fits all here. There's different agencies that could be described as the same thing. So,
Yeah.
for me, it was a challenge to decide who I was going to include. And there was quite a lot of research involved because the police also have their own armed units. So
Hmm.
do I bring in them? So, and I don't really know anybody in these areas that I can ask, and I can't really phone up the press office and say, when do you deploy your armed units? Because then they'll be looking at me wondering if I'm totally off my head. I
I
mean,
start most conversations with other people as I am a writer and I would like to know.
yeah, and then they'll be thinking you're a criminal, but you don't want to admit it.
I guess that's probably true. Yeah. So what are some of the unique challenges of writing these books in essentially this is not your homeland. You're not from there. You've spent I forget how long you said you've been there.
17 years.
17 years. So a couple of decades there. So you by now it is home. Very
Hmm.
familiar the way things work. I mean, this leads me to two questions, really. And the first is, what are some of the more technical challenges you have to face with, publishing and marketing your work outside of Germany?
Technical challenges. Well, I mean, with the internet, there isn't really a technical
Okay.
challenge with publishing outside of Germany. Um, I'm, I've actually got more of a challenge publishing inside Germany because nobody here seems to be interested. I mean, I would have thought that Germans would want to read something like this, but they don't. It's actually people in America and in Britain who are more
Right.
into these books, and that's really surprised me because I thought that there would be quite a few Germans that would be into this stuff, but no interest whatsoever, and
No,
that's
that's my experience as well. Germany is not a big market for thrillers. It's interesting. U.S. and
well,
U.K. are big thriller markets.
Germany's got their own ebook reader, their own
Hmm.
ebook market. It's called
Right.
Tolino,
Yeah.
and I think Draft to Digital publishes
Yes.
through Tolino.
Yeah.
So they do have a very big ebook market over here. Amazon are not as strong here as they think they are.
Right.
But I mean, it's very hard to break into Tolino because, obviously people always think of Amazon, they always think of Apple. Tolino's only got I think about a 30% share of the market here. So,
Mm.
um, but once you've actually broken into Tolino somehow, then apparently then you start to make good money. But I really don't know how you would do it, because Tolino is not one company. Tolino is a mixture of different companies.
Right.
Um, I think it's Hugendubel, Book.de, and various other places, various other bookshops, book chains here.
Right.
They
Right.
all come under the same banner.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And we've looked. I remember that was one of the first things I did at Draft Digital when I started, was to go through each of our different services and look, see how they were constructed, see what their target markets were, and how they were built. And Tolino was one of the more complex ones uh, floating around out there. So
Yeah, so when it comes to contacting them to market your books, or to ask for help, I mean, there's no central place to talk to.
right, yeah.
It's just a whole bunch of people crowding together under one name.
What are you finding? Do you track it all? Like, what's selling the best in Germany as far as ebooks?
And
Like, what
my books,
genre?
or ebooks in general.
Ebooks in general. This is probably outside the purview of your
Right.
expertise, but I was just curious, and then we'll talk about your books again.
Well, um, I would say that here probably it's somewhere like thrillers and crime books, and also romance. I mean, there seems to be quite a lot of romance books
Yeah.
flying off the shelves here, and that makes me annoyed because I can't write romance to save myself. But apparently, the romance writers, they're raking the money in, and I'm
Yeah.
thinking, damn it.
Yeah, that's a worldwide challenge, actually. so,
Yeah,
how many books do you have out right now?
I have 7, and 4 of them are in print. So
Okay.
they're not only in ebook, they're also in print. But the other 3 that are not in print, they're just short stories, and I'll
Hmm.
probably bring them out as a box set eventually.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. So, okay, 7 books, and how's everything doing? I mean, are you
Sales
doing?
wise, not so great.
Yeah.
As I
Yeah.
said, the marketing has to improve, and I
Yeah.
have now have to do better with the Facebook advertising, and so hopefully when I get the hang of these things, then the money will go up.
But you have a nice hook. You've got two aspects of these books that make them unique, in my opinion, fairly unique. So I think it's just going to be finding the right channel for your marketing, and how you're going to handle it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, as I said, the whole idea of the female spy in the man's world. Um, I don't think that's something that's ever been done seriously before, especially by a man.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. If anybody's listening to
Well,
this,
I mean, there was Richard Castle on the television series Castle. He wrote a female protagonist.
well, did he?
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
but,
Nikki
yeah,
Heath.
was
Remember
that,
that?
but that's not a thriller writer. He was a crime writer, wasn't he?
Mystery. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Uh,
But that kind of gets lumped into the same category.
he doesn't have a spy. I've
He
got a
doesn't have
spy.
a spy. Yeah. You've got a spy.
I'd like to think that one day this is all going to make its way onto a TV series.
Yeah. It
That's
could.
my
You know.
fantasy.
Look, you never know. And you're writing these at, I think, the right time. The
Yeah,
zeitgeist of the moment is.
you're with the Me Too movement in America, and
Yeah.
the women power at the moment in Hollywood and so on, and you've got Netflix shows like Jessica Jones, for example. I don't know if you've ever watched Jessica
Hmm.
Jones.
Right.
Um, I mean, I see her totally as the woman who could play my character,
Yeah.
because she looks the same as as the person on the cover,
Yeah.
and she's got the same attitude and the same temperament. So I'm thinking to myself, how do I get in touch with this woman?
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Kristen Ritter.
yeah. 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 Very attractive. And
I wasn't.
very,
I wasn't thinking about that at all.
I am. I will freely admit that. Call me what you must. Okay. What are some of the approaches you're taking to the marketing right now?
With the marketing right now, I'm looking for podcasts to be on. So
Okay.
I'm on your
Check.
podcast.
All right.
Check. I'm trying various advertising platforms such as Facebook, Amazon, BookBub.
Yeah.
Kind of a bit hit and miss at the moment. You know, I'm not quite sure if it's the keywords that are the problem or not, but quite a bit of mixed results there.
Hmm.
But I've always heard that the best marketing ploy is just to write the next book. And
That is good advice. Yeah. There
yeah,
are
and then
those who might disagree with that, but I'm not one of them. I agree with that.
oh, when I get to 7 books, though, I think to myself, well, eventually I've got to slow down a bit and market the ones I've already got. So, but I thought that people always say, just write the next book. Don't worry about it. Just write the next one, and it'll all
Yeah.
come together eventually.
I honestly believe that that's true. I believe that if you continue to refine the work, build the work, build up the body of work, you've got an income right now, and it's even a writing based income. So that's better than a lot of authors get. I think you've got some serious advantages. You might consider doing, starting to put some shorts out on platforms like Wattpad or, well, possibly not Wattpad. That may not be.
I thought about Wattpad. I've opened an account on Wattpad, but to be honest with you, I'm not quite sure if I understand how it works.
Mhm.
Because if I put stories out on Wattpad, does that make it easy for people to steal the work?
If they're out to steal the work, they're going to find a way to steal the work. If they're I don't think that's a problem most authors really have to worry about. I know that authors do get pirated. I've been pirated. The way I see it is those people downloading my book for free, stealing it, or whatever, weren't going to pay for it anyway. So I don't let that bother me. But
Yeah.
we could do a whole topic on that, and there are those who vehemently disagree with that philosophy. I just happen to think that there's no real point in worrying about someone pirating your work. First of all, I mean, to put it bluntly, no one's heard of us, right? If I were Stephen King or James Patterson or Dan Brown, I might have to worry a little bit more about it. But then also by that point, I've got movie deals and other things to salve that wound. So
You're such a morale crusher, you know that. Nobody knows us. Who cares?
no, man. Look, there is power in anonymity. Okay, all you got to find is that 1,000, raving fans that I think Neil Stevenson talks about, and you can make a pretty good living from this stuff. I don't think that worrying about theft and piracy is something that we need to do. So,
yeah. There's a platform called that I saw the other day called Curious Fictions. Don't know if you heard about that. And it's like the Patreon for authors. So you can put stories on, and then people can pay you every month to have access to them. So cool. I don't know if you want to check that out. It's an invite only thing at the moment, but I mean, she's quite quick in getting back to you with invites. You just have to show that you're a real writer. So if you show your website or show what you've written, and then you can get an account on Curious Fictions.
There you go.
Well, I'm thinking about using that.
Yeah, no, that sounds. I've heard a little bit about it, but I haven't really, dipped into it at all. But that sounds perfect.
Yeah, so people can sort of donate money every month, and in return they get to read your stuff. So,
yeah, Dean Wesley Smith does something similar. I mean, he does what he calls Smith Monthly, which is a digest of short stories he publishes each month. Because he writes like a short story every week, and then I know people. I think Michael Bunker is one of these who publishes work exclusive to Patreon, so you can only get it if you're a Patreon supporter. So there's there are a lot of options like that. So I think things like that might work well for you. I think I would concentrate in your position. I'd concentrate less on trying to monetize and more on trying to get the get, that base platform of readers up with some, start seeding out a little bit of like some free short stories and things like that to get them interested in your other books.
Well, the short stories that are not in print yet, those were originally given out for free
Yeah.
to people. And so after a while, I started charging for the later ones, but the earlier ones I'm still giving away for nothing.
Right. Right.
People who sign up for the mailing list, they get the Renegade Spy free, and they get 2 of the short stories free. So I'm still giving them away to people who want them.
Yeah.
I decided that, even the short stories, they're like 10, 15,000 words. So I wanted to get something for them, even if it was just $1.
Yeah.
Just to have something to say, that I'm making some money out of it. But I don't know. Maybe I'll go back to giving them away for free again. I don't know yet.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah. What you got to do is experiment, play around. You'll find a pattern that works for you. So okay. Well, so you're now you are. These are you said these are set in Germany? Are they set anywhere other than Germany?
No, they're only in Germany at the moment.
Only in Germany. Yeah.
I've had people ask me if I'm planning to take my spies out of Germany and put them somewhere in an exotic location or on the beach or something. And I don't know. These spies, they go after people who are attacking Germany, so it makes it difficult for me to take them out of Germany.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see. At the moment, they're set in Berlin, and I'm putting them in other places in Germany. So I might start experimenting by putting them in Austria next and Switzerland, and then I'll see how it goes, see what the reader reaction is like.
Yeah, that's very cool. Yeah. How are you researching your books?
With the internet, which
Okay.
has its pitfalls. I know that because
Right.
if you rely on too much on Wikipedia, for example, you could end up getting it totally wrong.
True.
Yeah. Google Earth is also a great place because obviously if you need to be standing in a street and you're not there, well then that's a great resource.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, just using the internet is more than enough these days. I mean, I'm planning on going on a trip probably up north to Berlin at some point this year, just to check a few things out to make sure that I got them right.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, most of the time I don't even have to leave my office.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, look, James Patterson was saying he does the same thing, man. He if he needs to set something in Paris and he hasn't, he's been to Paris, but if he doesn't quite remember or if he's talking about an aspect of Paris he's never really seen personally, he goes online and goes on Google Earth and
Yeah.
walks the streets.
Yeah. Well, as I said, things like Wikipedia are a bit risky, but I mean other places,
Yeah.
Other places are not bad to use.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's interesting. Now, I also find it kind of interesting that you didn't you're not setting anything, back home, in your home country. What made you decide to do that?
Well, when it comes to MI5 and MI6, for example, that's been done so many times already.
That's true. Yeah.
Mark Dawson's done it. Everybody's done it, and so there's no niche. There's nothing there for me to say, well, I'm doing it differently. And as for Scotland, there's no Scottish equivalent because they're technically not their own country.
Right.
So they fall under MI5 and MI6 as well. So I just decided that there was not enough books set in Germany using German intelligence, and this was going to be my niche and my way of standing out from the rest of the crowd.
Yeah, I like it, man. I think you've chosen something unique in a couple of different ways. I think it's smart. I'll be curious to see how it all shapes up for you over the next couple of years.
Have you actually read it?
No, I haven't. No, I'm excited. I will. Well, you just reached out to me last week, man.
I'm pulling your leg. I'll send you a free copy.
All right. Well, that'll do. Yeah, that'll do. All right. So I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up. I think we're kind of at the end. Now you got a promotion coming up. Now this may not air in time for a promotion, but maybe we can send some people that way either way. What do you got coming up end of April?
Right. Well, end of April, I'm putting the first 4 print books together as a box set.
Okay.
So if you go to any of the ebook platforms, look under my name, Mark O'Neill, The name of the fictional spy department is Department 89. So if you look up Department 89, you'll get the books up the same way. And at the end of April, I'll be putting the first 4 books up as a box set, and they'll be cheaper than if you were to buy them individually.
Excellent. All right. And where can people find your work in general online?
Well, you can go to my website at markoneil.org. That's Mark O'Neill as in Markoneil. Because people always spell my name wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, they leave off that L. And the second
they leave off the extra L, that's right.
Yeah.
Or, as I said, you can look on Amazon, or you can look on iBooks, Kobo, Nook. I'm everywhere.
Everywhere. Thanks to Draft Visual, we've learned.
Exactly. Yeah. Thanks to you guys, I'm everywhere.
All right. Okay. Well, that's perfect then. We'll go ahead and wrap up. If you're listening, of course, you want to check out. You're going to find links to all Mark's website, his Twitter handle, everything you need to find Mark online on the show notes of this episode. If you're watching on YouTube, it's in the show notes down below this episode. Mark, thanks so much for being on, man. I'm glad you reached out to me.
Well, thank you very much for having me on.
You got it. All right, everybody. By now, you must be hearing the groovy theme music. You may dance in place at will. We'll see you on the other side with industry news and other goodies. So see you there, and otherwise I'll see you next time.
Hear your book the way it was meant to be heard. With a fully custom soundtrack based on your material. An album of music that perfectly fits your characters, your settings. Hear your book today. SonataInscribe.com.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that interview with Mark O'Neill. I hope you got some useful information out of that, some inspiration. That's where I think this one hits home for me. It was some inspiration to rethink some of the things that I do in my fiction regarding the protagonist, regarding setting, that sort of thing. So hope you like that. And be sure to check out Mark O'Neill's work. Go over to wordslingerpodcast.com and find the show notes for this episode, or look down below in YouTube and you'll find links to everything we talked about, including Mark's Facebook page, his website, his Amazon author page, that sort of thing. So check that out. Now we are let's do something radical here, and let's jump right into the industry news. So, the first story, sorry for clearing my throat in your ear. The first story, Walmart and Microsoft team up to fight Amazon. This is an interesting story because of the nature of these organizations. Walmart, of course, was the Amazon of its day. But Amazon has taken over the landscape, the retail landscape. And this is more about Walmart teaming up with this other massive giant, the online giant, Microsoft. So it's a little bit like two dinosaurs combining their strengths and resources to fight the genetically mutated dinosaur that's come on the scene. Man, there's a book here, I'm telling you. Okay, so Walmart and Microsoft joined forces in the fight against Amazon. Under a 5-year deal announced Tuesday, Walmart will boost its use of Microsoft's cloud services and work with the tech firm on artificial intelligence and machine learning projects. Now, this is all aimed at competing with Amazon's cloud computing services. Amazon and Microsoft, of course, have been competitors for a while on that space. Amazon and Walmart have been competitors in the retail space, so this really kind of makes a lot of sense. Those Amazon's cloud services, according to this article, racked up over $5 billion in sales. That's with a B in the first quarter. So, congrats on you, man. So this is pretty significant. What we're looking at is Walmart is going to pair up with Microsoft to beef up its cloud services and its web presence around Walmart.com, SamsClub.com. They're moving everything over to Azure, which is one of Microsoft's cloud-based architectures. And this is going to, the idea is to become a stronger rival for Walmart. Where this impacts the indie author industry, I mean, Walmart had recently got into a deal with Kobo for Kobo, or Rakuten is actually providing the ebooks that are going to be sold on the Walmart.com website and in stores. Ebooks sold in Walmart stores. So you can actually go to a Walmart, pick up a display card, check that out, take that to the checkout, and purchase an ebook through Walmart. So that, combined with this deal with Microsoft, could open up vast avenues of opportunity for indie authors. So this is a space we want to keep our eyes on. Amazon, of course, has ruled in this territory for quite some time. They basically control everything at this point. It's very hard to do this, to work in this industry and not do business with Amazon. So I welcome competition like this. Competition like this means that we have more leverage. Amazon has a real history of not listening to the indie authors, not paying any attention to what we are concerned about, what our needs are, and this is a great opportunity for us to potentially be heard and see some changes, some positive changes. This could also all go south, but I tend to be a little more optimistic about these sorts of things. Competition is good in this kind of marketplace, so let's see what happens. Follow this story. You can actually hop on over to wordslingerpodcast.com and find a link to this. But if you go to bit.ly/156-Walmart, that will take you right to the story. You can find this in the show notes of YouTube as well. Next up, Bad Romance. This is a story on The Verge, which is the full title is how a cabal of romance authors. Well, they didn't put this title on the page, but it was something along the lines of how a cabal of romance authors. Let me see if I could find that. I want to read that off to you. How a cabal of romance writers cashed in on Amazon's Kindle Unlimited. Now, that title is a little misleading, I think, and there are some components of this article that do not quite fit with reality. Indie authors are more or less portrayed in this article as hacks who are gaming the system, leveraging marketing tricks and tips and techniques, some of which are unscrupulous, to manipulate the Kindle Unlimited system. But it does do a very fair job of covering a lot of what's been happening lately. In particular, you'll know this term, Cockeygate. So that has been resolved, but this does open by talking about that court case. And it also goes into a lot of other like trademark trolling stuff, and mentions a few things like things that actually aren't against the law or against Amazon's policies, but are still considered a little iffy in the industry itself. Things like they mention one author, self-published author, who offered his readers a chance to win diamonds from Tiffany's if they reviewed his new book. I think on close review, that depending on how that was implemented, that is actually not against Amazon's terms, and it's not against the law, depending on how it was implemented. I know I'm going to get pushback on this, but the truth is Amazon doesn't restrict you from offering some sort of bounty when it comes to getting reviews. You just can't pay for reviews. You can't say, I will give you a Tiffany diamond if you review the book. It's a chance to win, and I would assume this person was smart enough to say you must purchase the book, and putting some language in there that you're looking for legitimate reviews doesn't hurt either. So anyway, that's an interesting story I just wanted to throw in there. If you would like to learn more, of course, you can find this in the show notes of the episode, or you can go to bit.ly/156-bad romance. I highly recommend reading this article. It's a great look at what's happening, and it's a great tie-in to our final story of the week. And this one, folks, this one's got my ire up. I'm not going to lie to you. So this isn't actually a news story from a site so much as it is I'm linking to the U.S. Patent and Trade Office website on a potential trademark nightmare. Someone has filed an application, and it's awaiting examination right now, but they filed an application that essentially trademarks basic layout for novel covers. The trademark, it features an image of a silhouette figure, an outline figure holding an axe, with title/series at the top and author name at the bottom. A basic layout. That is essentially what every cover looks like. Let me read to you the description of the mark. The mark consists of a title and or series name at the top of the trade dress, one or more human or partially human figures underneath, at least one of the figures holding a weapon, and an author's name underneath the figures, wherein the title/series and author's name are depicted in the same or similar coloring. The dotted lines represent the product and are used to show the location of the trade dress on the product and do not constitute the trade dress. The dotted lines they're referring to is they've outlined the book and the character on the cover in dashed lines to show that the shape of the book and to show where the title, series, and author name would be located. Design search codes include men depicted as shadows or silhouettes of men, hatchets, axes, and tomahawks. This is ridiculous. I mean, I'm just going to say it. This pisses me off. This is the kind of trademark trolling that I want to see people just staked to a wall over. I have a suspicion as to who this is. I won't name him in this. He's recently had some troubles. He was named he was named in another instance where he was trying to trademark common usage terms that would essentially allow him to sue people who write in his genre. I thought this was a good guy, by the way. This is another reason why this pisses me off. And I don't know what game he's playing, but it is legitimately pissing me off. He recently announced and asked for help over the fact that he was blocked at Amazon. All of his books have been pulled from Amazon. And I'm not going to say he's guilty of anything. That may be complete coincidence, but typically you can count on there being some kind of shenanigans or manipulation going on if you get blocked at Amazon. I know it happens to innocent people. I do. But what's really got my ire up over this is it's a little too much of a coincidence that happens, and at the same time these trademark reaches are happening. I'm just furious about this. This is a big deal. So go check out this patent. Or this trademark. I don't have a news story about this yet, but I will say that I've reached out to some folks I know in the investigative journalist world to see if maybe I can nudge an exploration of this. And if this is not the person that I think it is, well, I don't owe him any apologies because I haven't named him. And I haven't talked to him. I've thought about reaching out to him, but I'm so furious about it that I'm afraid I'll say the wrong thing. So better to not make assumptions, give the benefit of the doubt. I'll just decide that I suspect it's him, but I'll just decide that until I know for sure, I won't be mad at the guy. But this is the kind of thing, folks, that we got to stop this. I mean, chances are, if you're listening to the show, you're not one of the people who's doing this kind of thing. So let's just look at this as some object lessons we can learn in advance. But I'm so fed up with people trying to not just game the system, but essentially screw everybody else who is trying to make their living in this industry. All right. I'm going to move on from this story. So that's been our news for the week, and I'm glad that you stuck around for that. Go check that story out at 156 it's bit.ly/156 trademark, and that rounds up our industry news. I got to move on from that. I'm furious. Anyway, so that has been the Wordslinger podcast this week. I hope you got something really, truly useful out of that. Things that are coming up. I've got conferences coming up for basically the rest of the year. I'm going to be at Indie Book Fest in September. And then in August, I'll be, I think late September, early August, or maybe it's late August. I get them all mixed up. I'm going to be at the Oklahoma City Writers Meetup or Writers Red Sneaker Conference. Sorry, man. There's too many. And I'll be at Nink at the end of August. And then come November, I'll be at 20 Books Vegas. So, and I've got some others in there as well. So, I'll try to keep you updated on those. But if you're going to be at any of those conferences, I'd love to connect with you and chat. I hope to see you there. Other than that, man, it's a busy time right now. This is a conference season. Is just very busy. So, anyway, I hope you're having a fantastic week. I hope you have an amazing weekend. Be safe out there. God bless each and every one of you. I'll see you all next time. Hey, thanks for tuning in to the Wordslinger podcast. Now, you can support this show by visiting wordslingerpodcast.com. That's where you're going to find back episodes, books by me, and links to anything and everything Wordslinger. And be sure to subscribe to this show on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, and anywhere else fine podcasts are sold. I'm Kevin Tomlinson. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Wordslinger.